Hello everybody. So my name is Erick Oh. I was one of the jurors for this year's computer animation film VFX competition. It's my huge honor to be here with Alex and Pascal, obviously the winners of this year's Ars Electronica competition, and congratulations everybody. I'm on behalf of other jurors, Gail, Denise, Joe Gerhardt, Sabine, and Rob O'Neill, who aren't here with us today, unfortunately. So we had about over 700 applicants, and we had to narrow them down to like 15, which was brutal because I thought didn't make any sense because every single piece was so beautiful, and we were enjoying so much on really going over every single piece, and as much as we had a really hard time coming up with final selection after a long debate and discussion and argument. Yes, we fought. That part wasn't very fun, but we were able to finalize our final selection in the end of the day. We had different criteria like aesthetics, narrative, technical achievement, and of course, how innovative it is, how original it is, how the film is really pushing its own medium, and how it's really delivering artist's vision to the story point. And so I think the final selection we came up with, it really describes and shows where contemporary art and film is supposed to be. It really describes us where we should be at. And then if you haven't checked out the screening, please go ahead and see and be ready to be amazed because they are beautiful. And then, so before moving on, I'd love to introduce 3 films today, award-winning films. Golden Nica winner, Alex. Her project title is Idle Times, and her project is actually an exhibition, not a linear film with a single channel video. Just think of a moving image that really interacts with you. So yes, it has been done before by different artists, but in my opinion, most of the times it's not very successful. But in Alex's case, it's really in both of in terms of both a message you like to deliver and technical achievements she made. I think it's just really up there. So I'm really excited to hear more about how you came up with it and the filmmaking process of it. And do we have a short clip of documentation of her project, right? Can we? Maybe not. Oh yeah, we do. No, maybe not, sorry. Okay, she'll cover it. And one more film is Pascal Floerks Bear. It won award of distinction, and it's a personal story of the director with his relationship between himself and his grandfather, who is visualized as a powerful bear, which can be pretty cute and appealing. But the truth is, that it's really emotional and heartwarming and heart-touching film because it deals with family and loss and life in general. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your filmmaking process and how you came up with the really beautiful work. And one last film is called The Reflection of Power, directed by Mihai Grucu. Fortunately, he isn't here with us today, but it's a film that illustrates the isolation and emptiness in North Korea. We had not many political films this year, so it really stood out. It really hit us hard in our heart. So it's basically live video footage of Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea, and with no one around, and it's flooded. It's really heavy metaphor, and it really it's really reflected and kind of generated really well. So so there was like a super brief introduction of the 3 films, 1 Golden Nica and 2 award distinction films. And then without further ado, I'd love to introduce Alex, please.
So, hello. It's a full room today. I'm used to sitting behind my computer and mainly communicating with my screen, so this is a bit daunting for me, so I'm sorry if I sound shy. Could we switch to my computer? I'm first going to show you a trailer, which you can also find on Vimeo if you want to watch it at home, of what I did, so you have an idea.
Who's that? Who's that?
Phone.
Not me. I'm right here. That's
Yes, we're right here. What am I doing here?
So that's the trailer. So just to make clear, as my colleague told you, the whole installation consists of 13 different screens. There's 10 dumb screens, so to say, and then there's 3 interactive works. You can see 11 of the works presented at the OK, of which one of them is interactive, which was the first work you saw in the video. So, as you might have expected from the aesthetics, I have a complete and utter obsession with medieval art. This is going a bit too fast. Anyway, it's going to go through it. So, the framework of this story is completely inspired by a medieval pamphlet which was handed out during the times of the plague and which was helping people to die. It's called the Ars Moriendi, and it doesn't really have an author, and it reappeared also over decades. So, and one thing that always was in the pamphlet was the 5 stages through which a dying person would go. So there were 5 seductions. One of them, for instance, I don't know them by heart, you can just Google it. One of them, for instance, was holding on to material means, the denial of God, and so on and so on. So, and the beautiful thing is that over the centuries, there were etches of the 5 stages that appeared everywhere and reappeared later also in painting. They always have the distinct quality of having, like for instance here, they have devils on the one side and then sort of angels on the other side of the dying person's bed, which is so incredible because to me, or as a contemporary interpretation of that would be, those are avatars who are helping the storyline to be told. So it's incredible how people that never thought of movies, because of course they didn't exist, thought of these little devices as to help tell a story. So I was really, really impressed by that, and I came up with this story for Temps Mort about a family where a father commits suicide, and the whole family is actually sort of happy he died, but sort of not. So they go through the 5 stages of grief by proxy. And as to further the storyline, I thought it would be really interesting to have them all have their personal avatar, a little devil that helps to tell the story or helps to display their inner turmoil. So I did that within Temps Mort using 3D software and using Cinema 4D, actually. I keep on forgetting that I'm talking to a room of animators. what I also did was, this is my absolute favorite work within the theme of the Ars Moriendi. It's Death and the Miser by Hieronymus Bosch. And Hieronymus Bosch has really a way of being very expressive with the avatars I was talking about. Like, it's about a miser who dies. So you can see that here the miser used to steal money from the treasure chest, which is, you know, a representation of the treasure chest of the municipality or something like that. I read it in a text, so it's very well done. You should really study it in detail. You can easily Google it. It's really beautiful. So another thing that was done in the Renaissance was they would copy the same character twice within one image to you know, help along the story. I think it was called pictorial déjà vu, if I'm not mistaken. So this is like an early Renaissance, early Renaissance example of that. Also, so genius to do this. I mean, imagine not ever having seen a timeline or not even being able to imagine a film or something, and then just coming up with the idea of copying characters. So as you might have noticed in the trailer, that is something I did as well, at least with the big first work. Can I get a picture of it? Yeah, so here 4 of the 5 characters are featured twice, and then the 5th character is not the father who died, but is the writer, so he's just somebody who observes. I'm going to go a little bit into detail on the software I used. I'm going to keep it short, and then I would please urge you to ask me a lot of questions, because I'm better at answering questions than giving a presentation. For this piece, we recorded me and my team, because of course I really couldn't do this alone. I worked with a small team, so I have one person, Dustin Kershaw, who's like a great Obi-Wan Kenobi when it comes to compositing. He helped me do the compositing. And then I had an assistant, a friend of mine, Sam Montbalieu, who helped me do the motion tracking on the characters, but I'll expand on that later. So we recorded the actors in the studio separately, each of them. And then afterwards, on a green key, of course. And then afterwards, we composited the image together. And the background is basically an apartment, which has been on my computer for 3 years. So mentally, I've been living in this apartment for 3 years. And then the animation of the little animals is something I did myself. I had great fun with that. So I sculpted them myself, very much inspired also by Hieronymus Bosch and his strange little creatures. And then I animated them, and then there's one of them in particular who's a little frog-like creature. I'm going to see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. It's like a frog-like, you can see him jump. So a frog-like creature that has like one eyeball, and so as every animator in the room probably knows, reference material is very important. So I was watching films of frogs jumping for hours and hours and hours. And it's so nice, you know, to see like how their weight kind of goes down, and then it was really nice to copy it. So all the 3D animation is done in Cinema 4D. Most of the grading I've actually done in After Effects, which is not how you're supposed to do it, but I did it anyway. Yeah, a lot of it is also done in Photoshop, because it has some still images in it as well, which I graded in Photoshop. So, and then the characters themselves, of course, my actors don't look like this. I mean, that would be biologically impossible, I think, or at least not very healthy. So the way I did it is I saw this great, and this is a great tutorial. So it's a video copilot tutorial. It's on Demon Face Warp, I believe so. You can just Google it. And it has this technique, which I perfectioned, mentioned in it, which is reverse motion tracking. So it's basically, you put a lot of dots on the people's faces as to, just track their face. 9 in total per face, which was a very bad idea, but anyway. So 9 dots on their faces, and then you track the motion, so you kind of stabilize the image around the motion of the face, so the frame moves and the face doesn't move anymore. Then you attach a grid to it, you distort the grid, and then you reverse the tracking, so the grid moves with the head. The only problem with that is that it is 2D motion tracking, so as soon as the actor moves his face like this, you're fucked. So I can tell you this, I'm going to talk about the interactivity of the piece as well, but the interactive piece is 9,250 frames, and it was, so times 9 trackers, and the tracker marker fell off every 200 frames. So we spent a lot of time tracking, so which was very tedious. So that's what I've done. And then I thought, well, I'm always trying to, or at least, I don't know, I have this obsession with looking at very classical things, like medieval painting, or like just a moving painting, and then trying to translate them into something very contemporary. So I thought it would be interesting to add an interactive element to it. So the interactivity as it is presented here works in a way that there's a phone number stated on the card. Usually you get a business card when you enter the gallery space. And then when you call the phone number, the phone rings in the work. And then one of the characters pushes it on silent, and then the conversation starts. I have a beta in which the red-headed character you can actually see her send a text message. So I was already tinkering with it when I was making it. So she sends a text message, and then the last person who called the phone number can engage into a conversation with her. So I did this for a theater festival, and it was great. The only problem with it was that I actually started scripting a chatbot for it, and chatbots are so dumb. So I kind of rerouted the messages to a phone number, and I just took over at a certain point. So it was very interesting because I was having a direct dialogue with my audience. So, and then when it comes to the interactivity, the first version was made in Max MSP and involved a Arduino with a GSM shield attached to the computer. Which is not the best solution because, first of all, it's not very portable over different countries. And then second of all, serial ports and Macintoshes are a bitch. So at a certain point, I met somebody who knew this genius HTML coder, and I just took my patch to him and I said, please solve this. And he said, okay, I'll solve it. And so now it works in a way that we use an online VoIP service. So like Skype, it's like voice over IP, only it's called Twilio because it's open source and you can work with Java in it. And not to go into the details, but the way it works is the file is locally hosted, the video, because otherwise that would mean you would have to need a badass internet connection. So the file is locally hosted on a computer, and it communicates through App Engine with a little Java applet to Twilio, the online service. So, yeah, I guess that's it. If you have any more technical questions or any more conceptual questions, I would love to answer them. But these are the basics. Anybody?
So do we? All right. Yeah, that was great. So it's my first time moderating, so I'd be really super clumsy. I'll ask for your understanding if I make any mistake. Yeah, I have a question though. So the texting part of your work. So what does that really mean? So that's the only time, one-time interaction in the whole piece, right? Is there any other moment that you really interact with the picture, or is that texting moment is the only moment? And then what does the text say?
So should we need a second microphone?
Oh, yeah, sure. Something like this.
So the first telephone call is, of course, it's a pure like an activation. There is a voicemail. I can actually hear the voicemail if people leave voicemails. I've gotten some really interesting voicemails. And then the texting, that was really nice because the first two answers I scripted as like standard answers, and then the chatbot was supposed to take over and analyze the syntax of what the person was saying, and then relate it to a tree structure, if coders in the room know what I mean, like a tree structure of storyline, which it was supposed to follow, or at least it could diverge a bit from it. Yeah, so that was
really guide you to follow eventually to the story point, like
yes,
to
sort
deliver.
of, or like grasp back or ask questions which point again to the specific storyline. Yeah.
Wow. And then the characters, the portrait of them, they are somewhat distorted.
Yeah.
And is it in order to show the passage of time, or it seems like it has multiple meanings behind, and is there any specific thing you'd like to say?
Well, I don't know. I think if you make things slightly eerie, especially if you make banal things slightly eerie, then you kind of attract attention to the strangeness of the banal. So
yeah.
That's why.
Any questions?
Anybody?
Pascal? I'm sorry, I was just teasing you. I mean, we can actually come back to Alex, and then maybe we can go over to Pascal if you've got a brief presentation on your project, right? And then we'll come back. Yeah.
Computer. No. Okay. So yeah, hi. Hello everyone. I'm Pascal. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to have the opportunity to be here. That is a very big honor for what I thought of as a very small personal project that started during my final year at Film Academy in Ludwigsburg. So thank you very much. I'm very honored. So the project is called Bear. And because I don't know who's actually seen it, let's watch a short trailer first. Let me check the sound. Okay. Do we have sound? All right, sorry. There should be sound, shouldn't, I mean, how can I check? No?
Ist gerade drin, ne?
Wahrscheinlich müssen wir
Umstellen,
noch
ne?
umstellen, genau.
Können wir?
Oh, speakers, yeah. Okay.
Das hier ist mein Opa. Solange ich meinen Opa kannte, hatte er nie enge Freunde. In seiner Zeit bei den Fallschirmjägern war das anders. Als ich schon älter war, gab es diesen einen Moment, als er mir diese Geschichte erzählt hat.
So it's very short because, I mean, the whole thing is just 8 minutes long. I can't make it a 3-minute trailer that would ruin the whole movie. But, I mean, what you could see is like, or it is a film which is just composed out of photos, pretty much, and my voice. But more to that later. So this is me, just a short introduction about myself. There's a photo of me. I don't know why I did it. Now you can see that I'm actually me. But Pascal Floerks is how people call it me, and I'm born in 1982, which makes me now 32 years old. And I made my Abitur in 2002, and I had no freaking clue what I should do. And I just started to like 3D animation, and I liked computers long before that, so it kind of made sense. But I was really bad at it, and I tried to get into internships and stuff, and no one wanted to have me. And so I studied media management, which is pretty much economics for media. And I liked it, but at the end of that, I don't know, I just didn't feel right. So I still wanted to do film, and I tried applying at Film Academy because that's always the school I wanted to go to. It's in Germany, in Ludwigsburg, and for me, they just had the best fitting animation program. So I applied for it, I tried everything, you know, just to put it on one card, and it worked out. And they took me, and then I said, oh, yeah, right, let's study again. So, and then a couple of years later, I graduated again with Bear this time. And so just to have a little bit of a background about like how I came to the story is also a little bit like what I actually did at Film Academy and what I also do in 3D work. And everything I do is what the industry calls a character TD. So I create character rigs for animators and for 3D projects. And I did that like all the time at the Film Academy. And I took 1 year off, and I was able to work at Blue Sky Studios as a character TD, and I was working on Ice Age and Epic. And then I made all the rigs for Room on the Broom, the facial rigs, after I came back from Blue Sky. And then, you know, like, there's a lot of rigging. So, and I just, it really, I was really done. You know, I was just, but I have this video to just show you, you know, what I do like for a day-to-day basis. This is a project, a friend of mine, Jacob Fry, his graduation project. He was sitting in the same room as I did, so we are friends, and I did the rigs for his project. You know, again, lots of rigging, and for my final project, I just wanted to do something else. You know, just no rigging. I just couldn't. I was saturated, and I still like it, but you know, and so I was thinking about ideas, and I always had this idea in my head of my grandfather because I had a very good relationship with him, and I kind of always thought about his past in World War II. And it was just something in my head, and that's why I went for it. And so for myself, I said, okay, let's try telling a personal story, do something else. But I just didn't want to, I mean, I do study animation, so I wanted to have a different side of it tackled. So I said, there has to be a way to keep it more open, not just have it about my grandfather, but keep it more open for others as well. And also keep it simple, because I knew I'm going to do rigs anyway. I mean, so there's limited time. So the no character TD work is actually stupid because I did lots of character TD work still. I just didn't do it for myself, which was good. So, and also I really liked the Black Sad comic series, and at the time I was reading it like, I don't know how many times I read it at that point, but I was reading it again, and what strikes me with this is that the characters are immediately like understandable just by having them being animals, and just the way they draw it and stuff. It just, I don't know, it just made sense at that point to try and make him an animal as well. So what my professor, my student teacher, what he wants us to do, his name is Andreas Hukade, for you who know him maybe, he says, like, if you have an idea, just at the beginning of the project, just give me one image that resembles that idea. Just one image, just try to give me something that resembles the whole story or the idea behind it. So I did that. Actually, it's 2 pictures, but anyway, he wasn't mad. Because it's a side-by-side thing, because I thought it's the beginning and the end pretty much. And so there was a beginning of it, just having this photo. And this is how the idea actually became real, and out of my grandfather became the bear. So, sorry. And that is a common question, and it absolutely makes sense. So I just want to explain it a little bit. For me, it's the Black Sad thing that I had in my head. It's like it immediately transports a character, and it's not just my grandfather. It opens it up for own projections. I thought it fits him visually. A bear. He was always a bear. He was never a different animal. So I don't know, just the way he was sitting there and stuff. I think bears are very beautiful. At the same time, they're very dangerous. And because, you have teddy bears as a kid, so you're used to bears in a way, and they're cute and cuddly, But as I said, I don't want to meet them out in the woods. I guess that's not a good idea. So it's also very dangerous. So it transports the character just by that, and the expressions. I like them. Just they're being kind of neutral, and then they can be really mean. So how did it start? I have very limited drawing abilities, but I did it anyway because I had the story in my head, and I thought, okay, how do I tackle it? I mean, I know there are photos, but at that point I didn't know, like, what photos do I have? And I knew what story I wanted to tell. So I started to draw, like, the ideas that I wanted to show in the photos. And this helped me to organize it and then go out and actually search for the photos. And that's what I did. I went to my grandma. She was still alive at that point. And we went through the photos, like every photo book they have. And luckily, they have like lots of photo books. And it was I can tell you from a personal side, it was a very interesting process, because I learned lots about him, like just looking through the photos and new stuff that I didn't really know about him, and stuff that I actually, at that point, I was really mad about myself that I never asked him about it, because he was already dead at that point. But it was a very interesting process, and luckily, I think I found the photos that resembled the points of the story that I wanted to tell. As for the war photos, you saw a couple. It wasn't that easy because my grandfather just didn't have these photos. He had a couple when he was imprisoned in France, but I mean that actually looked like holidays. He was like outside in the countryside, and he said he's in prison. I'm like, all right, but so luckily there is the Bundesarchiv of Germany, which have all the photos, and it's even easier because it didn't need to go anywhere because it's just online, and so I could just log in and search for stuff, and then I had to buy the rights to use it, and that's what I did, and that's how I collected all the war photos. And then I just needed the bear. So how do I do that? I mean, the same thing that I did at the beginning with the photo of resembling the idea. The most simple thing would have been just to go to Google and search bear and then just composite it in somehow, you know. That's what I tried at the very beginning. And I quickly realized that it's just not gonna happen because like every bear looks different, the lighting is completely different, it's not gonna give me the poses and the expressions that I need, so I don't know why I even tried. The next thing that I thought is like, well, you can photograph a bear. And I found this video and I so wanted to do this, you know, like, I mean, just like, go out and be the guy under the bear, probably, I'd be dead, you know, but I don't know, it looks like fun, you know, like having the interaction with the bear. And I jump forward a little bit because he's a trainer and he's playing is so fun, you know. But this other guy on the right, he's standing there being very prepared to knock him out, I think, because he has this stick, you know, here in the back. And I'm like, oh, no, let's not do this. It's not a good idea, but it's fun. I would love to do this. You know, it's like he's cuddling with the bear all the time. Look at this. I mean, who wouldn't do that? So I went, it's so massive. So I went the boring way and I made it 3D. Yeah, sitting on the computer instead of playing with the bear in real. Yeah, I mean, it was the most flexible for me. I did animations, you know, it just made sense. But actually, yesterday I had the idea because this is like the third edition of the bear that I had. I have like 2 versions before that, and they're super, super ugly and bad. I should have shown, I didn't bring the images this morning. I thought, oh, I could just show it, but I didn't put it in originally and didn't have it with me. So this is a third edition. I tried it 3 times, and then the third time I said that has to be it. Just to show, I have a little 1 minute clip, like the process of starting with 1 photo and finishing it up, just to show you. So this is a process explained in a 1 minute video, but now I'm here, so I tell you a little bit more in detail about it, and we can go through each step. So what I did, I started with ZBrush, and I guess most of you know what ZBrush actually is. It just made the most sense to start with anatomy, just look at a lot of anatomy of the bear, which turned out to be really hard because of all the freaking fur. You know, you try to sculpt in muscles because you think it's very important, and then the fur gets over it, and then it's all gone. And then you realize, oh, you put way too much volume actually into the mesh. So I had to go like over it a couple of times. And then you retopologize it because you can't work with a ZBrush mesh, create a rig, you know, there it is, creating a rig, then creating textures, the first setup and working with the materials. And then I had pretty much a done asset, which I can just put into the shots and pose it and setting the lights, render it, and composite it back together. Just for out of interest, so I use Maya for the bear, and ZBrush and rendering is all done in Arnold. So I do have, I thought it's fun, you know, to just watch it, look at the asset here. So it's very, I don't know, it's not much, you know, it's just, that's him. And most of the detail is actually pretty much just in the nose, because that's the only part, and a little bit around the eye that is actually not covered with fur, and that what I need. I mean, you always have to look out a little bit, what do you actually need and what will you see, and these are all very old photos, so it's gonna be blurred anyway. And so yeah, this is how it looks like in ZBrush, and so this is that. And then I just retopologized it. I used a 3D code, which I think is very good for the people who want to know that. And I had that already, but I thought I'd come back to see where we are at. Now we're having, I have to create the rig and the textures. I started with a photo reference, and I mean, that was pretty much the hardest part, to get the fur right, having lots of different textures and like black and white maps for different attributes of the fur. And this is one render without the textures, but it has all the details in the fur already in it that I wanted to see. The fur, you know, it's interesting. I think it's the first time I ever did something with it, and the way it works, just to explain it quickly, is you have these guide curves that you put on the mesh, and then you can you have a brush, and you can comb it, you know, and it takes the directions and different attributes, and then the computer puts all the fur actually around it. So with that, for example, here you have all the area pretty much around it that you're influencing when you just change this one. And it will interpolate between all the things. And it's a very interesting, intimate process. It takes a lot of time, you know, just sitting there and doing this and checking. This is the technical part behind it. Then you put it into the system, and then you tell it, okay, in between this you have like curls and stuff. The fur has to look like this or like that. And then there's the shading, the material of the fur, that is also very important, that you have to kind of get right, where you say, okay, how much specular influence do you have? What is the color from the textures, but also add like other stuff on top of it, like subsurface scattering. So there's lots of rendering involved in like checking, you know, having him in very awkward poses to see if it's right, you know. Yeah. So we have the fur now. The asset is done by now, and it's now up to having just the bear in Maya. This is the shot that you also see in the video. And this is just it, you know, like there's not much to it. I was just able to go in and say, all right, let's open his mouth and show his teeth a little bit, and then and then check with the render camera that I was setting up before to see if he's fitting into the shot. This is just a dummy geometry to put in, so I know a little bit like what the surrounding is. And then you go in, or I did at least, and set the lights and put in the fur and render it. So, and then I used Nuke to put it all together. The lots of passes, but you know, the good thing is it's just photos, so there's a lot of room to just paint and stuff. I didn't do that very much at the end, but it just made fixing just parts where the fur didn't look good just very easy. And these are a couple of shots that that are pretty much, you know, that are done and just rendered. So this is the one from just the Maya scene that you also see in the video. And then for coming to the end now, for a couple of shots I actually had to go out and make the photos. For example, there is a shot where he's sitting in the hospital on the bed, So I used the latest of technology to actually help me, just by making photos of a chrome sphere and a gray ball to catch the lighting. Because now here you can see like there's some light coming from this lamp, and you have to reflect it in here a little bit, and it just helps so much in lighting. You have it in the chrome as well. And I knew I wanted to place him on the bed. So in the bed, in the original photo, it doesn't look like a bear sitting on it. So I knew I need this kind of in 3D. So I went around the bed, made photos, and then I could put this into a photogrammetry program, and then it will spit out the geometry for it. And then I will put that into ZBrush, and I will sculpt a little bit. And then at the end, I have like something where I can place the bear on top. And it gives me like nice contact shadows and like a little bit of a cooler. So all of the photos at the end, they're like 30 bear, 30 to 35, I'm not quite sure actually, bear photos. And altogether they're like 80 photos. What wasn't really, I experimented a lot of it with it, but I had them developed as slides, which was pretty cool because it helped to merge the real photo and the bear together even more. And I mean, I could have done it digitally to have just the change of the photo, and I tried that as well. But then again, if you can, that's what I found out myself being a computer guy, if you can go out and do it and use that, I would prefer doing it because you get lots of little stuff, like light leaking a little bit, the texture of the canvas you project on, it just makes so much more, it makes a difference, it makes it look better. So this is what I had from Film Academy. It's Sony F3 and just an ordinary, really old slide projector, and project it on the canvas and film it. And then with that material, obviously I had to go back and I had to put it back into editing. But at that point I just had to match, like I had a timeline with the roughs, and then I had to match that. I had to color correct it a little bit, and that's pretty much it. So that's it, yeah. That's me again. If you have questions, please feel free to ask, but for the time being, thank you. Do I sit? I sit. This button. Do we have to press this button? Hello?
Oh yeah, sorry. Wow, that's amazing. So technically, this was your first film, and then you won the award in Ars Electronica. How does that feel?
As a director, it was a yes. Yes.
As a director.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's amazing. As I said, I mean, it starts with the personal. I mean, every project from, I can only imagine, but you always have like a personal thing with it. But on top of it, it's my grandfather, and at the beginning when you start a journey like that, I was very skeptical, like, who will ever be interested in it? I mean, who can, there are lots of war stories out anyway, and I didn't know.
Did you always know about your grandfather's story, like life story, like going through this war and this tragic experience, or did you just, of course, we always love our own grandfather, and then once you decide to make a film about him, that's when you figured out his story, or did you already know about him like before, like as it, yeah?
No, that is what I already knew. Oh. Yeah, it's not much, and it's the same. It goes through the whole family. We didn't know much, because it just didn't talk about it. And these it's just the bits and pieces that are covered in the film are the only bits and pieces that I actually know. And it's the biggest story, like the shooting of his friend and then he going like rampage, he told me just once briefly, and I could already see like, all right, this is something that is like sticking in like deep within him, that's still shaking him. And this is something you don't really, I didn't really often see with him. Yeah.
I mean, this film is so real because we are with you. Like, it definitely reveals your process of learning about your grandfather and then going over time, and it really shows. And then, which means all those photos are from him, or did you have to go to some sort of library to get these war photos? Like, where all these photos come from?
No, all the war photos are online from the library, but the other ones are all from family archive. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the way of the choice you made was pretty incredible because, you know, oftentimes if you really decide to make a film like that, and then there are a lot of limits you gotta face in terms of like being an independent or student film. But it really fits, not only that, but also it really fits to the story point you're trying to deliver, like a narration on top of photos. Is that something you already had something you had in your mind before, or is it coming from the limitation from the?
Yeah, to be honest, at the beginning, I was also thinking about having it animated in a way, but I quickly realized. And I needed my own time to actually realize, and Andreas Jokade also helped me with that as well, is that the photos make total sense for the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, it just was very scary in a way because I was sitting in a room with 5 other people, and 2 of them are working on the present, which is the rig that I did for Jacob. You know, which is very Disney animated, like that's what he wanted to do, and the other one is a very effects heavy, like really big film, and I was sitting there and editing photos. So you know, there were times where I really had to struggle with it a little bit, but I realized in the process that this just makes perfect sense, and it would. I don't know. Yeah. It would make it. It would actually probably destroy it a little bit more if I try to put more into it.
I agree. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, probably this leads to my next question. Probably, maybe these questions go to you, Alex, as well, because both of your films, maybe it's not even not like typical way of storytelling, right? Do you have any plan in your mind, like to try some of that, like a little more traditional, using film language, like some sort of like linear, because I'm personally curious, like if that comes out from Alex or Pascal, how it's gonna be. So do you have any like plan or thought on that for your upcoming future project, probably?
I don't know if I understood the question.
I mean, okay, I can summarize it to just one sentence, I guess.
Sorry.
Your next film, probably, are you planning on your next project? And sorry.
Not at the moment because
not at the moment.
I'm back to rigging. You know what
you're
can
back
I do?
to rigging.
Well, it's like if you start that stuff and you being a freelance 3D guy, and the money has to come from somewhere, and so I get booked for rigging.
Okay.
And but I never tried. I never had film academy in a way where I thought I'm gonna be an animation director or anything. Oh. So I kind of fell into it now a little bit. So I of course. I mean, the film, for what it is, I think is very successful, and the people understand it and they like it. Some do, and but so I think there has to be another one. Not Bear 2, of course, but
why not Bear 2?
It's just for me. I think people. It's a big honor to have people come to you and say, what else have you done? Nothing? well, do another one, and then you say, all right, thank you for the confidence you're giving me. So I do think about that, but I haven't planned anything in particular just yet.
Yeah, I'm working on a next story, but it's not. It's not a. If you're asking if I'm doing a traditional linear film, I think I want to do one of those maybe in 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, because I think.
I'm gonna be counting.
Yeah. No, I would just love to explore and experiment a lot more and have a lot of, experimental experience before actually doing something as traditional. And I think I need to see a lot more films before I do a full feature length or a full short or something. But yeah, I would love to. But then in 10 years, somebody wants to fund it.
Yeah, same for me.
Same for him.
Fund me.
If you guys have, oh yeah.
I'll break the ice. You have one?
Is there ice?
Yeah, I thought I had to borrow from them. Hello. Okay, I'll get to this side. So, Alex, first of all, I really love your work, and
Thank you.
I can't wait to see the full film. So, my question is, or full film, experience, the full experience. My question is basically because you're experimenting, which is my favorite form of art. When you decided to do this sort of hearkening back to medieval art, did you consider that we as an audience would have to know about that art, first of all? And then second, because I feel that what you're trying to do is more of a theatrical experience, like we're sitting in an audience and we're actually breaking the fourth wall and actually being able to talk to the actors on stage, whether or not you had hoped that the audience would advance the narrative somehow. Did you have that in mind?
That's a very good question. So the first question about the art historical aspect, I think there's some truth in it, but at the same time, I think maybe I'm being romantic by thinking this, but I think we all have a certain kind of understanding of that kind of art, I think, or at least it's something. I mean, there's a lot of symbolism in medieval art, which is, and there's a lot of symbolism in what I do, but it doesn't need to be literally read. I mean, I think it kind of vibrates on a more universal level, and I don't want to be as paternalistic to like have complete control over what people think happened or the symbols they read. So I think I think humans always refer to some form of symbolism, whether it is the right one or the wrong one. That's really besides the question, I think. So, and then about breaking the fourth wall, that is actually something I'm really struggling with, or at least it's a question I'm asking myself for future projects. So, because right now the interaction, even with the text messaging, is sort of binary, and it sort of stays like in a two-way activation. There's not really a feedback loop. And that's really something I want to try to advance with future projects. And that's also something I want to explore before making that feature length, which somebody's gonna fund. But no, because I really think that's a very big contemporary question, which needs to be asked, maybe not solved, but at least asked. So, yeah. Yes?
Looking at thanks for the presentations first, and looking at the two movies or films that you had, there was a joint theme in the personal approach, and I would like to we saw the beer story. Alex, in your work, you have a family. You touched upon the historical medieval inspiration, which, however, are more symbolical and allegorical. They are not really personal. What you introduced here is more 20th century or even 21st century personal narrative. Could you explain more on this family which is gathered, and in contrast to the art historical precedent, not around the dead, because the dead is absent, so we only see the family. Can you shed more light on his family and how you came about this personal setting?
Well, it's not really a personal story as opposed to yours, or not really. I mean, my father is still alive, so there is an element of family conflict which is very recognizable, I think. And I think in terms of what you say about the absence of the dead person, something that really interested me, and that's maybe a personal interest, if the grieving process in moments of suicide, because it's this complete moment of chaos, and it floats in between time. If somebody committed suicide, it's like nobody had to, or in most cases, people are surprised, or at least some people are surprised. And I think the grieving process by proxy is something that really interests me. And I think that's why I decided to, because it's like a death process you go through as people who are near that person. So I thought it interesting to explore that, I think, in terms of, what psychological cycle you go through as being a person who suffers from somebody else's suicide, I guess. Questions?
Hello, this is for Pascal. When you were putting together the slides for the photos, was there any kind of an idea of narrative behind how the photos went one after the other?
Sorry, can you say it again?
Was there any narrative or a narrative idea behind how you structured, how you put the photos together, what order you put them in, and how you did it?
Oh yeah, I mean, the story was in my head from the beginning on. So I knew that I was just looking for the words of how to say it, and the photos to fit not fit it one to one, because I think, like, I wanted to have some parts of the story just told by the photos, some parts of the story I just mentioned pretty much in the voice. But from the very first moment on, I knew what I wanted to tell. It was more the difficulty was more into how do you make it a little bit, at least a little bit film-wise. You know, how to have it develop, which makes it more interesting for the audience. Like, how do you put this story? Because everything that is told, and I don't know who's seen the full thing, but everything that is told is reality. And but how do you? I didn't want to go in and just, just say it in a way. I wanted to make it a bit more interesting. Like, how do you get into it? How do you get out and stuff like that? But yeah, altogether, it was there from the beginning on.
I have a technical question for you.
Oh yeah, please.
Which software did you use for the fur?
Oh, it's this is a Maya plugin. It's called Yeti Fur.
It's awesome. Yeah.
The plugin is awesome. Yes.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So thank you. I have a question to Alex. What I'm really wondering about is the kind of light you used. It's in medieval paintings, there's always this kind of very smooth and kind of very aesthetic lighting, which comes from the way how they painted it, or I don't know. So could you tell us something about how important the light itself is for your work, and what you found out about it?
It's very important. I think lighting is, to me, in terms of scenography, it's like half the work. So I tried to make the lighting as soft as possible. And actually for the portraits, so the small pieces, I did that in a very small studio, and like I was the crew. So I was doing the camera work and the lighting and the directing at the same time. It was crazy. And I used TL light, which is something which you're not supposed to do because it doesn't have a certain green spectrum. But because of the how could I say, like outlandish looks of the film I was making, that didn't really matter. So the good thing about TL lighting, I don't know if there are a lot of students in the room, but I can tell you it's cheap. So yeah, and so you can just get it at a hardware store, and you can get 6 or 7 of those, and you just mount them on a piece of wood, and it's very cheap, and it doesn't use any electricity, and you just put it as close as possible to your subject to have this beautiful white lighting, and then you use a lot of white cardboard to fill it out. I studied photography, actually, so lighting is something, and actually I worked also for a year for a packaging and food photography studio, which is interesting to start with. It's like as rigging, you know, how long can lemons stay sexy? I can tell you, not so long. So one of my favorite things to light, by the way, is a razor machine, because it has matte parts and then it has shiny parts, and you have to light it perfectly, and it's very hard, but it's so nice to do because it's a little puzzle. So yeah, so I guess lighting skills, that's something I can do. It's something I've been practicing for years, and it's a good thing to practice. So yeah.
The first thing you said about these medieval paintings and the drawings from the books was that you were interpreting them in a way like you're looking at it from a contemporary point of view. So you were taking a lot of iconic and stylistic references through a selection of paintings and artists. Can you talk a little bit about the style you created, and is this something very particular, like this mixture, and why you chose these specific artists?
Yeah, I can actually. So the thing is why I'm so obsessed with that era, and it's particularly, I think it's from about 1530 to the early 1600s, because it's a pivoting time. It's a time where, you know, painters weren't using lenses yet. They weren't using a camera obscura yet, and then they were, but they were using it in a completely wrong way. So they were wrong from a contemporary standpoint of view. They were moving the lens in between sessions, and which created a complete distortion. And then there were parts where they didn't use lenses. So, and I think that's a very interesting moment in time. And I actually think we're in a similar kind of moment. I mean, we're like in a moment where their 3D rendering is advancing a lot, amazingly, in the last few years. But we're still using the old techniques as well, and there's like a richness, an abundance of beauty and of aesthetic vocabulary, which is still there, and aesthetic grammar, of course, which is the most important thing. And we kind of have new techniques, but we're kind of using them in an old way or something, which creates a very specific sort of, how should I say, like a broadness of aesthetic techniques, which is, I think, similar to that era. So, so yeah, but that's a personal historical interest. And then I don't know why, but I really love that that imagery, and I really love the outlandishness of the characters and the strangeness of the beauty and the familiarity at the same time. So yeah.
Hi, my question is related to the topic, since both projects are related to death and grief, and I would like to know if you have a preconceived idea of death or grief before the project, and if it changed along or after the project. Thanks.
If I have an idea of like what the amount of work is going to be, did I get that right?
Death, the conception of death.
Death? Oh. Sorry. I understand depth.
Same thing.
Depth and death. You want to go first? I have to think about that.
No, I really want to hear your response now.
No. No, of course it is. Yeah, what can I say? I mean, my grandfather was. I mean, he was already dead 2 years at that point. And making this project helped me to. And I really don't know if this answers your questions, but I keep on talking anyway. This helps me. This helped me really to get over it a little bit. It's it's cliche a little bit, but I mean I had a very good relationship with him, and I had a very good relationship with all of my grandparents. But with him, it was different a little bit. He's one of those, the big rocks you can always go back to. And it was, for me, so it was a good process of understanding him a little bit better, and then just accepting. Not that I wasn't emotionally just like on the ground of his death, but I was still like missing him, and I do still miss him. But it was a different kind of relationship to his death, and I think that has changed. It was never something that I didn't want to do this project to get over it. It just helped, it just happened to be this way. For me, it was just. It was I don't know, it was in my heart and I wanted to get it out. And that's why I did this.
That's beautiful.
Oh my God, was it? Yeah.
I don't know, I think I have a very great interest in death. And I think a lot of great art is actually about death or about sex, to be honest. I think all great art is about death or sex. So I don't really know if my perception of it changed during the making of the work. I think, though, my perception of the tension between people during a grieving process, that changed. Because my characters, they're not always showing the most beautiful side of themselves. And I think by the end of the project, I kind of saw the humanity in that ugliness again, Wow, your answer was so much more beautiful. I'm gonna have to shut up now.
Yeah, hello. Thank you both for your beautiful presentations and the great work. My question goes to Alex, but I want to first like to comment on your work because I think it's impressive for me and for so many different reasons. First, because it picks up fine art tradition and the tradition of the tableau vivant, which was most popular at the end of the 18th century. It questions the idea of linear narrative and the photorealistic paradigm, because I think the fact is that contemporary animation sticks mostly to what Peter Weibel called the terror of the central perspective. And well, my question is a bit more lower, I guess. The small images you produced, are they always displayed with the large one? Do you see them as a kind of a comment to the main image, to the main picture, or are they separate work?
Well, the thing is, I come from the field of visual arts, so I see them as separate works, and they can be presented separately. But of course, I prefer if the whole installation is on view at the same time. There's also 2 other pieces which are also interactive, which weren't included in the show at the OK, because there was simply no space for them because they're large interactive projections. So, I mean, I think, of course, the installation works best if it's presented on the whole, but it's not necessary. And yeah, does that answer your question?
Do they work as a comment? I mean, do you have this in mind while producing the small images, that they maybe comment on the larger one?
Well, I like the way you state that, because I think, first of all, especially with the characters, there are studies. They're also called character studies. And I'm happy you say they comment, because the thing is, I believe that as soon as I'm finished with the work, basically, like Roland Barthes says, as you might know, the author is dead. I'm dead, you know? It's just put it on the wall and then it's yours. So if you think it comments, then I'm very happy, because that means the work created meaning on its own. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I would like to pick up on that and to baseline it perhaps from a different perspective. Just as an aside, it was very interesting that you mentioned Peter Weibel, because Alex's work is currently on display in ZKM in a show curated by Peter Weibel. So apparently he had exactly the approach that you just mentioned. But going back on the elements, and I mean, yes, Alex is definitely pushing the boundaries for anyone who likes her art, like I do. But it is pretty challenging to put up 11 pieces in your 50 square meter flat, right? So, I mean, she's on her institutional trajectory and she will end up in the museums. But what I would like to comment on, what Pascal described for her rigging, as an artist, you have to somehow also produce your work. And that has both an artistic, but also, don't forget, an economical basis. So studies are an aesthetic approach to your art, but you can also sell those works, and by selling those, finance your further projects. And there are a lot of artists who actually use this means of approaching further steps in their oeuvre, because you can't live from nothing, right? And so Pascal knows very well how it is to rig, and Alex, I think, knows how to do character studies and whatever, right? It's part also of a bigger context.
Yeah, you do the rigging, I'll do the small pieces.
A question to Alex. When I saw your movie, Only Here, I thought I had no connection to medieval images. I had a very strong connection to American painters like Grant Wood in this style. So was this inspiration for you, these American painters?
No.
No. For me,
so thank you.
They are very close.
Because I'm going to look them up now.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, thanks.
Actually, I can add one thing to the death question, you know.
He thought about it.
I thought about it. No, but I thought about what was very interesting for me, because while I did that project, you are a little bit in a trance where you have your workload and you have to get it done, but as soon as it was done, and I saw it the first time on the big screen in the cinema at the Film Academy, that is actually the point where I was relieved. You know, like this was very interesting for me as well, because it sounds very weird, but to be touched by your own work's kind of weird. But I don't know, I saw it and I was really sad, and then I thought, well, you know, now I did it, and this is actually the moment where I thought, like, also with his death, that it was worth it. You know, like everything that came afterwards, it's something I never expected, but just for me seeing that and being touched by it and thinking, I think there's a little bit I gave back to him. That was the best part. I just want to add that.
Oh wait, but then I have a question for you. So you could immediately look at it again, and it was okay. You were completely touched by it and happy with it.
Yeah, I was, and I mean, of course, you see it all the time, you know.
Yeah.
But it's so different when it's done, and then you say, okay, you have your presentation, and you see it the first time on the real big screen. That's where I don't know. That's where I said to myself, "That's it." You know, I could.
Wow! Congratulations.
I could leave it then, and then afterwards, I had hard time to see it again and again and again and again.
I can't look at it still.
Yeah. It was this first time, and where I really enjoyed it, and then afterwards, it was just like, you know, there's moments where I really can't see it. Because you see all the mistakes and all the small pieces.
You see all the mistakes and all the small things.
Question to Erick. So we talked yesterday about showing 2 minutes shortcut from Mihai Greco. So we have prepared it. So if you want to show it, we can show it. Yeah. Screen it, 2 minute excerpt.
Okay. What else?